This is Season 2, Episode 40 of the Emberhart podcast. Our mission is to forge resilient character and empower the next generation of girls and women to lead with courage. So, find a quiet corner, lean in, and let us get right into it. Excuse me. The atomic habit loop: how small triggers shape big behaviors. Dear Amelia Emberhart, habits often feel mysterious, reflecting on atomic habits. Why do some behaviors become automatic while others fade away? Why do certain routines feel effortless while others require constant willpower? The answer lies in understanding how habits are formed. At its core, a habit is simply a behavior that has been repeated enough times to become automatic. What begins as a deliberate choice slowly becomes an unconscious routine. How habits are born. Every new situation in life begins with uncertainty. Your brain asks a simple question: how should I respond to this? In the beginning, the mind relies on trial and error. Brain activity is high because you are consciously analyzing the situation and testing different responses. You are learning what works. Eventually, you stumble upon something that produces a reward. Maybe it feels good, maybe it solves a problem. Whatever the outcome, your brain immediately begins to study what happened right before the reward appeared. What did I do? What triggered this result? Over time, your brain begins cataloging these events. When the same problem appears again, it remembers the solution that worked before. Instead of analyzing the situation from scratch, the brain creates a simple rule: if this happens, then do that. The choice that once required effort now happens automatically. This is how habits are formed. Why the brain loves habits. Habit formation is not laziness, it is efficiency. The conscious mind is the bottleneck of the brain. It can focus on only one problem at a time. Because of this limitation, the brain tries to automate as many actions as possible. When habits take over routine tasks, they reduce cognitive load and free up mental capacity. Instead of constantly deciding when to work, exercise, or write, the decision is already made. In this sense, habits create freedom. If every small action required intense thought, you would quickly become overwhelmed. By automating routine behaviors, the brain preserves energy for more complex decisions. The four-step habit loop. Behind every habit lies a simple four-step pattern known as the habit loop. Q. The trigger that tells your brain to initiate a behavior. It signals the possibility of a reward. Noticing the reward. Craving. The motivational force behind every habit. Without craving a change, we have no reason to act. You do not crave the habit itself, but the change in state that the habit promises. Wanting the reward. Response. The action you perform, the habit itself. Obtaining the reward. Reward. The benefit you gain from the action. The reward satisfies your desire and teaches the brain which behaviors are worth repeating. The reward completes the feedback loop and strengthens the connection between the cue and the behavior. Over time, this loop becomes automatic. A simple cue can trigger a powerful chain reaction. The four laws of behavior change. If habits follow a predictable loop, then it becomes possible to design better habits intentionally. Four simple principles can guide this process. Make it obvious or invisible. Make it attractive or unattractive. Make it easy or difficult. Make it satisfying or unsatisfying. Each principle targets a different stage of the habit loop. When these elements work together, habits become far easier to build and maintain. Make it obvious. The human brain is constantly scanning the environment for patterns. It absorbs information, it identifies important signals, and predicts what will happen next. With enough repetition, the brain begins to recognize cues without conscious thought. This is the foundation of every habit. The challenge is that many habits operate below our awareness. Actions happen automatically before we even realize we have made a choice. The first step toward changing habits is becoming aware of them. One useful method is something called pointing and calling, a technique used in safety-critical industries. By physically pointing at something and verbally confirming the action, you raise your awareness from an unconscious level to a conscious one. Another helpful exercise is the habit scorecard. Simply write down the behaviors you perform each day and label them with a positive, negative, or neutral score. The goal is not judgment but awareness. You cannot improve habits you do not notice. As the saying goes, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. The best way to start a new habit. One of the most effective ways to begin a new habit is through a technique called implementation intention. Instead of vaguely promising to do something, you define exactly when and where it will happen. When situation X arises, I will perform behavior Y. Or more clearly, I will perform behavior at time in location. Clarity removes the ambiguity that often prevents action. Another powerful method is habit stacking. Human behavior tends to follow predictable change, where one action naturally triggers the next. This idea is similar to the Diderot effect, where acquiring one new item leads to a cascade of additional purchases. Behavior often works the same way. You can use this chain reaction to your advantage by attaching a new habit to an existing one. After I current habit, I will new habit. Because the first habit already happens automatically, it becomes a reliable cue for the new one. Motivation is overrated. Many people believe that motivation is the key to change. In reality, environment often matters far more. People frequently choose behaviors not because of what something is, but because of where it is. When healthy options are visible and convenient, people choose them more often. A guitar placed in the living room encourages practice. A bowl of apples on the table encourages healthier eating. Water bottles placed around the house encourage hydration. Small environmental changes can produce surprisingly large shifts in behavior. If you want a habit to become part of your life, make the cue part of your environment. When cues are everywhere, the behavior becomes difficult to ignore. Over time, habits stop being linked to a single trigger. Instead, they become associated with the entire environment surrounding them. The context itself becomes the cue. This is why it is often easier to build a new habit in a new environment rather than trying to change behavior in a place filled with competing signals. The secret to self-control. We often admire people who appear disciplined, assuming they possess extraordinary willpower. In reality, disciplined people rarely rely on willpower at all. Instead, they design environments that make good choices easier and bad choices harder. They simply spend less time in situations that trigger temptation. In fact, the people with the strongest self-control are often the ones who need to use it the least. Bad habits tend to reinforce themselves. They are autocatalytic, meaning the behavior feeds the feeling that created it, and a habit meant to numb discomfort can end up creating even more of it. The process is known as cue-induced wanting. Once an external trigger appears, it can spark a powerful craving. And while you can break a habit, you rarely forget it entirely. This is why relying on pure self-control is not a reliable long-term strategy. A more effective solution is simpler. Remove the cue. When a trigger disappears, the habit often fades with it. Instead of trying to resist temptation constantly, design an environment where temptation rarely appears in the first place. Designing better habits. In the end, habits are not mysterious forces controlling our behavior. They are learned responses to recurring situations. They begin with a cue, grow through repetition, and become automatic through reinforcement. The encouraging truth is that once you understand the system behind habits, you can begin shaping it intentionally. Make the good habits obvious, make the bad habits invisible, design your environment to support the person you want to become, because lasting change rarely depends on heroic willpower. More often, it depends on small adjustments to the systems that quietly guide your daily life. This is your moment. Take command and show us the path. Thank you for tuning in. If you found value in today's discussion, please help someone else by sharing this episode or leaving a review. For more tools on building your best self, head over to emberhart.com and follow us on YouTube at emberhartco. Keep showing up, keep thinking, and keep coming back.